Great, welcome. Today is Wednesday, September the 28th, 2022. This is a meeting of the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners. It is our regular meeting agenda. So first of all, do we have additions and deletions to today's agenda?
Patty, we do have one conversation. I believe Laura may be able to weigh in on this as far as whether it's an addition, but we will have representatives from City of Aspen and their contractor coming in Patty, is that to me to say no?
No. Kelly was just coming in. I'm letting her know it's okay. We're good. She can take her time.
Okay, sorry about that. At any rate, to come in to request a 2-day extension of the nighttime work at Elam. Laura, I don't know if you've had time to determine if we need to add an item to the agenda for that consideration, or if we do that in open discussion as administrative direction.
Yeah, so there's really two approaches. The idea is to give the public as much notice as possible of what's going on, and this board seems to not have gotten much notice, less than 24 hours of notice. The Open Meetings Act is really designed to make sure that the public can have as much information as possible. So I do recommend adding it as an item. It hasn't been noticed with 24 hours, which is really unfortunate. It's not a substantial change to the resolution. The open meetings law is designed to be flexible, understanding that emergencies do happen and the board needs to be able to deal with those. So I would recommend bringing it in as an item, understanding that this is not an approach that I would recommend if the board has more than 24 hours notice of an item.
So I'm just going to ask, where would be the most appropriate place on our agenda? We do have the visitors, the guests, coming around 1:30 to 2. So can we add it at the bottom of the agenda?
Yeah.
And would it be just a regular reso, or would we do it as emergency resolution?
It would need to be an emergency modification to an existing resolution.
So why don't we add that emergency modification?
And I have a resolution number for you if that's helpful.
Nope, I'm good. I'll just have you maybe do an existing reso. I'm going to add it at the end of today's agenda. That'll give everybody time. That's perfect. And again, thank you. I think the public will understand when we get to the item itself and discuss it. So and that is the only addition and deletion we have to today's agenda?
That I'm aware of, yes.
Me too. John,
That is correct, yes.
That's it? Okay, so I'm going to look to the board for a motion to amend today's agenda to add the emergency modification to an existing resolution.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Great, thank you. So now we're getting to the public comment period on our agenda. So are there any members of the public here in the room that wish to comment on today's agenda, on items that are not on today's agenda? So anything the public would like to speak about? And if there are no members in the room, do we have any members online? I don't see any. So we'll give it a minute. If anybody wants to call in or run into the room. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment for today's agenda and bring it to the board for commissioner comments. Greg, please.
Just that I'm going to have to leave around 3 o'clock today to run over to the Aspen Institute UN Mountain Summit Forum. So
Perfect.
I just want to warn you, if I get up
Warn
and
us.
run from the room.
We'll know why you're running from the room.
Thank you.
Thanks. And and thank you for speaking there today. That should be exciting.
Looking forward
Could
to
you
it.
tell the public a little bit about the mountain forum?
Well, I haven't really thought about it yet. No. I've got it. We've got our mics on.
Got it.
You've got to ask the question again, and then I'll be ready to answer. He wants me to tell about the forum. The UN Mountain Summit is a gathering, an international gathering of people from mountain regions and mountain communities around the world. It's sanctioned by the UN and sponsored by the state of Colorado, as well as Pitkin County and the city of Aspen and other entities. And it's a convocation of people who are trying to solve the problems that mountain communities face regarding this year. Mostly it's about climate change And so I'm going to be on a panel with several other elected officials from every entity who's involved in our valley, talking about what initiatives we've been pursuing over the last several years. And it turns out there are 8 of us on the panel and only about 45 minutes to speak. And so I asked our staff, who rallied and put together a fantastic one-pager with hot links and everything about our initiatives. So I can refer to that, and then everybody in the audience will have it online or on a piece of paper. So they can, if they want to learn more, they'll have a way to do that. So I wanted to thank Alex and Kara and Cindy and Abby for all the hard work they did putting that together.
Great.
So I won't have to speak specifically about all those things. I can refer to them, and then we'll see how far the conversation goes.
I want to see how it is with
happy.
8 elected officials getting 5 minutes or less apiece. That should be,
know, it's our
that's worth the
comeuppance.
price of the ticket.
It's our comeuppance for making everyone speak for 3 minutes or less.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? Kelly?
I'll just chime on to that. For those who can't get to Greg's invigorating presentation this afternoon, there is a concert and a children's parade that's going to happen at Gondola Plaza at 6 p.m.
As part of the same
As
event.
part of the same event,
Yeah.
yes. So everyone in the community is invited to join for that, for a little festivity.
Great. Steve, please.
So this Friday night in Carbondale, there is a contra dance which is being sponsored by the town of Carbondale as part of Potato Days.
That's right, potatoes.
And the Wooden Nickel String Band with Molly playing the rhythm guitar will be the band playing. And the caller will be Andrea Early Cohn, who was the first director with her husband of Rock Bottom Ranch for ACES. And now they live in Salida. And she's a really fun caller. She calls a fun dance. So I urge people to come at 7:30 in the 3rd Street Center in the community room. And the cost is $10 for adults and $5 for students.
And what else are they doing on is it Saturday and Sunday for potatoes, or just Saturday?
I'm not sure of the whole schedule. I
I
think
think people can probably pull it up on the Carbondale site.
probably mostly on Saturday, I would think.
And it's some big anniversary, I can't remember, but they've been celebrating potatoes for a long time in this valley.
Now, there is a former student of Francie's and mine, Raleigh Burley, is the one who organized the whole Potato Days thing for the contra dance. So I'm always pleased to see him. He's grown up into a terrific adult, and I had him in like 1st and 2nd grade years and years ago.
If I could add on to that, I just.
Francie has her hand up.
I know, I
Oh,
said
she does.
better.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Francie.
Francie, go ahead, and then I'll go to Greg.
Oh, if you're adding on to that, Greg, I'll wait till you're done.
Oh, just going to say that Andrea is a remarkable person. I'm glad you reminded me of her. She was incredible. She's also a fiddle player, I believe.
Yes, she is.
And they got Rock Bottom Ranch launched. She and Matthew was her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's great to hear that they're still in the state and doing good things. What was the other thing I was going to bring up? Sorry, it was right on the tip of my tongue. I'll get back to it if I
Okay,
remember.
we'll go to
Thanks.
Francie, and then we'll go back to Greg when he remembers.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not there. I wasn't feeling well this morning. I thought it best to keep any virus or whatever I have to myself here. I don't know if I'm actually sick. I feel better now. But so while I was homesick, I was watching coverage of the hurricane in Florida. And I just wanted to say that I'm concerned, as I'm sure we all here in Pickens County are, about what's going on down there. The intensity of the storm is really unbelievable. They're having 190-mile-an-hour gusts of wind. And they're expecting surges up to 18 feet in parts of the coast, and it's pretty dire. So I just wanted to send my concern and best wishes out to people who are down there or people who have relatives down there, because it is really intense. Another example of how climate change has intensified our storms.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
I just remembered.
Yeah, Greg, go ahead.
On another slightly tangential note, just remembering a climate activist from long, long ago. This is the 50th anniversary of the song Rocky Mountain High by John Denver, which was really at the beginning of a fairly strong conservation, outdoor, and environmental movement. A lot of people moved to Colorado after they heard that song. And this is the 50th anniversary of that song and the 25th anniversary of John's death.
Wow.
And if I can put in a shameless self-promotion, I made a portrait, a biography of him, which aired on PBS. And it's finally on Amazon and Netflix and all that. And I'd give copies away, but I can't. You have to rent it to see it. It's just a short portrait of him with memories from his friends and family who knew him. And I had so much fun making that film. And then I forgot about it for 17 years. And it just popped back up because it's the 25th anniversary. So anyway, if people remember John or want to, that's one place to look. It's called John Denver Remembered.
Isn't there?
And how do we find it?
You can go on Amazon and look. And rent it. It's called A Song's Best Friend, John Denver Remembered.
Okay.
And it was before HD, so it was one like the last film I ever made in standard definition. So it's like old school, but it's got some wonderful memories in it.
And the John Denver Festival should be coming up. I think it's in October every year.
Probably.
So it
yeah.
should be coming up too. And I'm sure they'll be doing things at the Wheeler, so, yes.
Thanks.
So my commissioner comments are just to thank the residents and the folks from Redstone. We had a work session in Redstone yesterday afternoon from 4 to 6 to talk about short-term rental issues with the community of Redstone. And the meeting went extremely well. People were considerate of others and differences of opinions. And I think we got a lot of good input from the people. They asked great questions. They presented good points of concern. And I just left that meeting feeling very good about our having taken the time to go down there and sit down with the people and listen. And we will try and get some agenda time here so we can bring their concerns and discussion back to the BOCC. But it was a great meeting. And also there was a horrendous accident on 133, which we see way too many of, and I'm sending out my best wishes to those involved in that accident. We haven't heard any details of it, but yeah, hopefully everyone will be okay. And we want to thank the first responders who were there on the scene as we came home from Redstone down 133. So that being said, the board ready to move on? Okay, we are going on to our consent items. We have the minutes of September 14th, 2022 regular meeting, ratification of hearing officer's determination on abatement petitions, ratification of mutual agreement of assessor and abatement petitions, and number 4, we have a resolution to appoint citizen board members. I've presented the board with a copy of that reso. We are proud to announce that we have Liz Stark, who is our new Board of Health at-large regular member, Barry Ramberg, she's the Board of Health at-large alternate, and John Ward, who is our Aspen-Pitkin County Housing Authority Board member, and that is a renewal for John. So we want to thank those 3 for their appointments, and we want to thank others who applied. We really appreciate people who take their time to apply for and to work on our appointed citizen boards throughout the county. We couldn't do it without you guys, so thank you. So does the board want to pull any of the other items off consent?
I'm good. I'd make a motion to approve the 4 consent items you just listed.
I'll second.
And I just want to add that it's usually Steve Child who pulls off the board appointments, but I've been beating him to him the last couple of times. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much. The next issue, individual consideration items. This is first reading, set for public hearings on October 12, 2022. The first item on our agenda is a resolution, the Board of County Commissioners approving a memorandum of understanding with other local jurisdictions for the Roaring Fork Valley Wildfire Collaborative. And Valerie, would you please like to come up? Because the list of members' jurisdiction is like the full front page.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome.
It is. It's quite remarkable. Hello, everyone. I'm Valerie McDonald. I'm the Pitkin County Emergency Manager. And with me today, I hope I don't see him up there. There he is. Kevin Warner, would you like to introduce
Hi,
yourself?
Kevin.
Hello, everyone. Kevin Warner. I work for the White River National Forest as the district ranger for the Aspen Cypress Ranger District, and glad to be with all of you. I think I know pretty much everyone on the screen at least, but if there's anyone else watching, thanks for the opportunity.
It's nice to see you, Kevin.
Well, I will kick this off. I'm here asking the board to approve a memorandum of understanding formalizing Pitkin County's participation in the newly created Roaring Fork Valley Wildfire Collaborative. And this is really a continuation of the board meeting that Kevin and I attended in the spring of 2021 when we were talking about wildfire preparedness. At that time, everyone acknowledged, everyone knows that wildfires don't respect jurisdictional boundaries. At that time, and we stressed the importance of all of us in the valley working together. And at that time, Kevin talked about his idea to form a valley-wide fire collaborative. And while it's a community effort, a whole valley, make no mistake, Kevin Ward, U.S. Forest Service, has done the heavy lifting, which Patty, as you alluded to, is no small lift. There are about 18 organizations on that MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, many other stakeholders. We've been meeting since early this year. There's probably 50, 60 people. Oh, there's the main group, and then there are like 6 subcommittees. I mean, there's a lot going on there. So I'm just going to give you high-level basics, and then turn this over to Kevin to see if he has what he has to add, and then see if the board has any questions for us. And just for the listening public, I do think there's value in taking 18 seconds and listing who the 18 participants are on this memorandum of understanding, just so everyone understands the scope of what we're trying to do here. So counties, Pitkin County, Eagle County, Garfield, and Gunnison. Municipalities, City of Aspen, Town of Snowmass Village, Basalt, Carbondale, Glenwood Springs, Town of Marble. Fire departments, Aspen Fire, Roaring Fork Fire Rescue, Carbondale and Rural Fire Protection, Glenwood Springs Fire Department, and then state and federal partners, Colorado State Forest Service, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and the BLM, and I think, did I already say the Forest Service? If not, they are a key player in this agreement. And this might sound simplistic, but I can't tell you how many meetings we had to come up with a vision and a mission statement. So I'd like to share those with you. They're very short, and then I'll ask Kevin to chime in. So the vision of this group is the Roaring Fork Valley Wildfire Collaborative works to empower all people to take action to reduce risk in their communities, to protect people, property, and places from wildfire loss, period. The mission, the Roaring Fork Valley Wildfire Collaborative works to reduce wildfire risk by identifying, prioritizing, and implementing strategic cross-country, cross-boundary plans and projects aimed at creating fire-resilient landscapes and fire-adapted communities while focusing on community engagement, education, and inclusion, period. The key word there is implementation. And that's all I've got. Kevin, would you like to jump in and add something?
I think those are the big things. I think the only thing that I would add to this really is that, this memorandum of understanding is incredibly basic in nature, intended to really just indicate that all 18 of these organizations they desire to work together to try to meet that vision and mission. At the core of it, there's places for signatures and all those other things, but that is the core of what this is asking for. So I think I'll stop there, and then just if there's any questions, Valerie and I are glad to answer.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board. Board have questions or comments? Kelly.
Yeah. Thanks. This is great. I am curious, what are the conversations with the collaborative around, next steps or pooling funding, or what is sort of the vision for how it's going to operate? And then also, are there any objections to the name? I'm glad to see there's more outside of the Roaring Fork that are part of this. I wasn't sure if a name change was on the horizon at all.
Kevin, do you want to take that and I'll fill in?
Yeah, no, I think I'll take the last part of Kelly's question first, and hopefully, after I answer that, I'll still remember the first part. The geographic boundaries that the group decided to use for the Roaring Fork Valley Wildfire Collaborative was the Roaring Fork watershed. So I think that most members of the group feel pretty okay with the name of the collaborative, because it really does include the watershed. And when you look at that greater watershed, it does extend into Gunnison County, where it's at the headwaters of the Crystal, and it goes up into the Frying Pan at the headwaters of the Frying Pan as well, and all of those different sources that come into there. The one place that is technically outside of the Roaring Fork Valley watershed is that it got extended just a little to the north, outside of Glenwood Springs, to include the area that the Glenwood Springs Fire Department covers, that is north of the Colorado River, where the Roaring Fork dumps in there. So it does, in my opinion anyway, it does a good job of describing the group and the geographic extent.
All right, thanks for the clarity. And then the other question was, what is the collaborative's vision about operating, as far as formulating projects, getting funding, that kind of stuff?
Sure. So the first steps in determining projects. So first of all, we're still working on projects as we go along. There's none of the organizations that have said, okay, we're just going to hold off on doing any actual on-the-ground implementation while we work on this part. So, there's still prescribed fires being worked on. There's still mastication happening and thinning and all those kinds of things that are helpful. And some of them are already being more collaborative in nature because of just the work that's already going on. But some of the work that's been going on to really work towards better collaborative cross-boundary projects is that I think it was last month we had probably 40 different people in one room looking at a map of the projects that have already occurred, the projects that people have already planned, and potential dream kind of projects that they're already thinking about as well, that all would provide wildfire mitigation work in the Roaring Fork Valley. So we had GIS folks in place for that to try to start to put that all into one map. And the benefit of that intent is to really look towards the future on where are the gaps, where are the places we should be going, and what work has already been done. So that's a big part of it. So there's more work to be done on identifying the highest priority areas that we can start implementing. But that's the first part of the mission, where we talked about identifying, prioritizing, and implementing. Those are the big things. So we're still working primarily on the identification and prioritization so that we can be strategic on where we implement.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, just to add on, I mean, there's work being done. You asked about funding. I mean, carrying capacity, obviously, this is a full-time job, and none of us is in a position to take that on. So we are looking at hiring a coordinator, and we're working on a funding structure, but there are so many people at the table. I don't think it'll be a large number for Pitkin County.
Sure, and I just was more concerned about what you guys are working on. I think Pitkin, we allocate money every year for this type of work, so.
So, Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Nice to see you there on screen at least, and Valerie in person. Regarding, how does this work with the suburban areas, with the inhabited areas, the WUI, wild urban interface? I get the impression that this is a fantastic start for a collaboration in certainly our wildlands, and then as we get closer to neighborhoods where you're rubbing up against private properties, what's the vision about how we will integrate? And the reason it comes to mind, one, is because we all live in these brush-choked neighborhoods, or a lot of us do. My neighbor the other day told me that her insurance company, very solid company, just refused to insure her. And they just said, we're trying to eliminate risk, so we're not going to insure you anymore. And I keep hearing that over and over again. Or they raise the deductible. Like another friend in Old Snowmass said, his deductible is now $200,000 if his house burns down. And so that's going to be really interesting to the community as we move forward. And I'd just love to hear, early stages, it's really exciting. Where do you think that's going to fit in?
I'll take the first crack at that, Kevin. The work we did in the Crystal Valley is a perfect example. It was land owned by the Forest Service. It was shovel ready. It was in the WUI. It's 130 acres just north of the historic town of Redstone. And Carbondale Fire, we brought them in as a partner as well. Those are the type of projects that we're looking for in the WUI, obviously, because that's where we'll get the most bang for our buck, right? We're protecting property structures, lives. Kevin, do you want to add on to that?
I think, Greg, that's, to be real honest with you, I think that's the real intent of what we're trying to achieve with this, is to identify those places. And that's why you see this. This isn't just like, let's say, the BLM and the state and the Forest Service saying, hey, let's work on those areas that are way out, out in the boonies, That's why you see that the fire departments and the Colorado State Forest Service, that is what Colorado State Forest Service does, is they try to work with private landowners to implement projects that help forest health and wildfire mitigation. So I think that's the beauty of what we're trying to achieve here through this collaborative, is that it won't be it won't be an entity going out and doing this work, over here that's not coordinating with the folks in the neighborhood. That is the intent of what we're trying to achieve, and I think we'll achieve that in better ways if we have a collaborative effort. So if I were to walk into with my uniform on and everything into your neighborhood, Greg, and start telling people you need to do stuff around here and we're going to do stuff out around there, it's probably very much less well received than if we have folks from the local fire departments that are coming in and saying, hey, how can we all work together to do this? So I think that that's what we're trying to achieve here.
Kevin, you'd be welcome anytime, but I appreciate, I get your point.
In uniform or out of uniform.
And also just having this formal memorandum of understanding will help in this group's attempts to go after it and get grants. And that will be part of the coordinator's job as well. So that's a big topic of conversation, the money.
Yep.
Okay, Steve?
So one of the things that we have happening on our property on Capitol Creek is a lot of trees dying. There's sudden aspen decline, and we have whole groves of sick and dying aspens, many of which have fallen over, and they're in inaccessible places. But one thing we are doing is just to cut them and get the main bulk of the log on the ground so it will rot faster. Just to help, get the organic matter back in the soil faster that way, but also thinking of fire mitigation. And we collect a lot of the accessible logs for our firewood. We heat our house with wood. Another thing we're collecting are broken off scrub oak trees that the bears have broken off, and when they're good acorn years, they will just break whole trees down sometimes to get the acorns out. So that's what we're doing on our private land, and it makes me wonder with the projects you're doing on a bigger scale in the Roaring Fork Valley, what are you doing in areas where there are a lot of dead and dying trees, either spruce or pine trees or aspen trees? Do you do anything special with them in terms of management to reduce the wildfire risk?
Are you talking about projects on private property?
No, on the public land, as well as if you are doing any cooperative things on private land also.
I would say that's all part of the equation and will be looked at it and considered. I thought you were talking about private property.
Well, ours is private property, but you look on public lands and, you know, I see a lot of dead trees also that aren't in wilderness area. They could be, you know, someone could go and
That
go in
could-
with a chainsaw and get stuff down on the ground so it rots faster. Or maybe the projects are more to go into a specific area, like by the subdivisions on the Crystal River, and actually grind up the wood and, or remove the dead wood and that sort of thing.
I would say the intent of the collaborative is the large multi-jurisdictional landscape, land scale type projects, but I'm sure we'll have another subcommittee for projects such as you're talking about as we evolve. Kevin, is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and I think, I think that the type of treatment and the locations of the treatments are the part that we're going to be working on more intently and intensively after we start to get the basics done. So getting the MOU in place, getting the formality of how the group works and how it's funded and all those things taken care of, will allow us to then focus in even more on the how do we do the work in the most important places. So that's on the radar, and that's where we're headed.
Right, and somebody just recently brought to my attention their concern about the slope along Ute Trail right here in downtown Aspen. I think part of that is county and maybe some forest over there. Lots of red and dead standing trees, and definitely right up against the WUI on that side. You know, we've been focusing more on the other side of this valley, but that's a north-facing slope, and there's some significant dead trees. That and along Shadow Mountain also, and there's a private property owner on Shadow Mountain I know who'd be more than willing to be contacted and maybe help to get some of that dead and red stuff out of there. So I think those are projects that, as Valerie said, we'll be adding to the list as we move along, or if somebody comes forward and wants to do a multi-partnership, that's what we need. We need help with funding and help with just community support and getting some of those things done.
Kevin,
So-
correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like the Douglas fir beetle kill areas where the Colorado State Forest Service just did a big project and they're hanging the pheromone bags.
Well, I've got a lot of history of pheromones, and they just moved to the next tree.
Right.
You know, this tree's full,
Correct.
I'll go next door. And my joke then, and it still is a joke, was to put them along the rim of Pickens County so they moved into our neighbors' yards, because they tend to move from my house to the house next door. So, but we, you know, that was way back when we were first dealing with the original pine beetle kill.
I'm
So-
sorry I brought it up.
I
I
spent
retract.
I spent a lot of time in
But-
Washington, D.C. on that one.
But I see those trees every time I walk up
Yeah,
Smuggler
I
and come
know.
into town, so
You
I
can see
understand
'em,
what you're
so-
saying.
Yeah, so I'm looking at a project that's on the other side of the valley. So, Kelly, please.
Yeah, our colleagues in Ouray had brought to my attention the West Region Wildfire Council over there. And they are primarily a grant-funded organization, so it might behoove to have a conversation with them about the types of grants that they've been able to successfully earn over the years. And I assume you guys have contacts around the state. If you don't, I'd be happy to facilitate an introduction, but I'll just recommend that.
Yeah, and I've modeled anything we've done in Pickens County after what that West Region Wildfire Council does, and it's primarily funded by Title III funds. So, and then they apply for grants. It's the same as this group will be.
Well, I want to just thank you for your efforts. The projects we have done have been amazing. Mother Nature has been very kind to us in cooperating on our prescribed burns, which was incredible. But still, when we did the projects up in Hunter Creek, it was still breathtaking to be driving up Valley and see Hunter Creek on fire. You know, but knowing that from where I knew, but a lot of people who didn't know that was planned, we're a little taken back. No matter how much advertising we get out there, some people just, just didn't hear about it. But yeah, that was an amazing project. We want to thank you guys for your efforts on that one. It was huge. Okay, any other comments, questions? Kevin or Valerie, anything else?
I've got a quick one.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, just Kevin, Valerie, just wondering, I've been hearing about these studies done on fungal decay programs for downed trees in the forest, or for, introducing local various mushrooms that actually help the breakdown and soil creation progress. Maybe it's assisting what's already there, but trying to focus it and see if that's a viable strategy for taking care of a lot of the biomass. And I was going to suggest Steve look into that too, because you could introduce mushrooms up there as long as they're the right kind.
Well, is that part of the new ballot question that's coming forward with the state?
I don't know. I don't think it's part of that. I wish it was about
It's
that
not part of
instead.
it. That's a different mushroom.
Yeah, different kind of mushroom. Anyway, I know I've been hearing about it. I know there are people that are really interested in it, and is there a plan to look into that for helping areas that perhaps have been ravaged or need to be absorbed back into the soil more quickly?
Valerie,
That's tangential,
Kevin,
sorry.
anything
I'm
about
staring at
shrooms out
Kevin
there?
and he's staring at me.
That adding any additional fungal microbes kind of thing is not something that I'm aware of. So if you've got any of that information, you can pass along. I can take a look at it and pass it along to our folks that operate in that kind of manner, and we can take a look at it. But it's news to me.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. I'll make sure that you hear from them.
I think it'd be great.
All
The
right.
White River National Forest is growing shrooms out in the forest.
But they're not magic mushrooms. They're just the regular old tree oysters and
They're
stuff like
magic
that.
in their own way, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring this back to the board. Any other questions, comments? This is a first read, set for second reading and public hearing on October the 12th.
I could make a motion
That would be great.
that we approve the resolution, the memorandum of understanding with other local jurisdictions for the Roaring Fork Valley Wildfire Collaborative.
Second.
I have a motion, and Kelly got the second. So seeing any other
Very
further
quick on that.
comments? Yeah. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Great job, Valerie.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we are
thank you.
going to our noxious weed. I want people to be clear. We're talking about mushrooms, now we're talking about weed. This is noxious weed. This is an ordinance of the Board of Commissioners repealing and reenacting Section 6.32, Title 6, our weed management plan of the Pickens County Code. And we have Romany Iacono here with us. So welcome. You made it through the traffic.
Yes,
It's
I made
nice
it through
to
the
see you.
traffic. Thank you for allowing me to be late, and thank you for having me.
Your timing was perfect.
Yes, it was. I'm thrilled. So I'm Romany Iacono. I'm Pickens County Land Management and Public Works. Today I'm looking to repeal the county code in regards to noxious weeds. We've got 98 pages of documents and outdated photographs. It's cumbersome. There's no reason to have all that codified. What we want to do is have state law, Pickens County law, enforcement procedure, and the noxious weed lists, which are now going to be linked rather than have them listed out, since there are 78 different species on the Pickens County list. That being said, we are going to maintain the old weed management plan in its entirety. It's been translated to Spanish. We have a dual language version. We have a Spanish version and an English version. And I think this will just make it easier for enforcement and to help people really understand the basics of species and the noxious weed enforcement and the laws
Okay.
involved.
And Francie, I see you have your hand up, but before I go to you, Steve had printed out, and I want to let him show what you are able to link to.
So I
Oh
would,
dear.
and I still have the old, the booklet with all of the pretty pictures in it
Yes.
and the explanation.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, where are those in this? And then I see the links. So I went to the one link with the noxious, the A, B,
Right.
C, D, and the watch list, and printed it out. So
Okay.
this is from the State Department of Agriculture, and there's color pictures of each of the different species on the different lists. And I got that right off of our, you know,
Oh, good, so the links work.
our
Okay.
packet.
I was
our
nervous.
packet.
Yeah, they work.
I
So
was
this
like, oh,
is
no.
what, if people want to see the
Yes.
pictures, you will need to go in the future and
Right.
look on the website,
And click on
so
the
there's, well, then there are also, I didn't click on any of the links on specific
Right.
ones. That probably leads to more information about each individual species.
And what we will have on our Picken County Land Management website, we'll have links that each go to this, and these are all photographs that belong to Picken County, most of them taken in Picken County. Thank goodness we don't have a lot of the species here. So we're gonna have that all on our website. And then we're also gonna have, like I said, Spanish version, as well as this dual language version, which is not really feasible to print, but I think it's a good learning tool for a lot of people as well.
I think I still have a pocket guide.
We've got that to,
Yeah.
the state puts those out
That
every
was,
year.
mine was
Yeah, they're
a while
great.
back, yeah. So you can actually carry it with you when you're going out on
Yeah.
hiking.
Yeah.
Okay, Francie, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I spent the other day, Monday maybe, I can't remember which day, reading every single weed description and looking carefully at the pictures, and I just loved it. And I love the specificity of it, like across from the Snowmass Conoco on Highway 82, or, you know, partway up Prince Creek at such and such a place. I just thought it was amazing. And the amount of time that went into locating all these growth areas for these different weeds was incredible. So I don't know who all did all the work on it, but it was an incredible read and I loved it.
I think Romany put in a lot of time.
We put in, so many people over decades have put in a lot of time with this. And like I said, we're not taking this away at all. This is still in its entirety. It's just not gonna be in the county code anymore. It's gonna be available online. It's gonna be available for print. It's just no longer going to be in that code. It's gonna be that small 3-page document.
Perfect. Greg and then Kelly.
Just wanted to say, my guess is you're so in with the weed thing that you're probably not going to get invited to a lot of people's garden parties.
Yeah, people don't like that. I'm in there taking pictures of everything. And that's
Don't come to
bad.
my house.
What you're cultivating over there is not the proper weed.
You need to get rid of that.
Hey, Kelly and then Steve.
Sure. What was the advisory board's role? In
We've
this?
got, it's all, we have 3 yeses and 4 informed consents. And we've gone through it several times over the past, we do quarterly meetings now, and for the past 4 meetings, we've spoken about it. I presented the different documents that we've done, and they're all
How
on
should I
board.
interpret informed consent?
Informed consent is, they were sent multiple emails that said you have until this date, or it's a yes to say otherwise.
If you object, let us
If you
know. If
object,
not,
please let
you're a
me know.
yes.
So.
A good question. Steve.
So, when I was on the Weed Advisory Board, which I think I was for about 10 years, and then Patty's been on it also, we would get a lot of requests, people wanting us to come, members of the advisory board, to go to their property and identify, see what
Right.
weeds they have there. And at that time, typically, I could go to just something like in Little Elk Creek Village in my neighborhood, and I would tell them when I got there, I will probably find 7 noxious weeds,
At least.
species on your little lot you have
Right.
here. And I would, because I knew which plants were common around there, and there are things that people wouldn't recognize. And
And
then
some
I
of them are
handed out a
beautiful.
lot of the little weed identification books from the state also.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious, are the board members doing that kind of a weed walk? I called it a weed
Right.
walk, just to
Um,
help people identify on their own property.
Right. Not since I've been in the position, but I do them. I worked actually quite a bit this year with Shieldo Mesa. We did a lot of enforcement up there, a lot of walkthroughs, drive-throughs. Spent a lot of time up there. My plan this year is to target different neighborhoods that have specific species that are bad, like McLean Flats, for instance, Horiolism, that's pretty bad up there. We're gonna do a countywide mailing, and then I'm always available. I go do site visits often, very often. But no, the weed board has not participated in that.
Okay, well, I enjoyed that at
Yeah.
the time, and I really learned the weeds really well doing
Yeah,
that process.
absolutely.
Yeah, we did one in Little Elk Creek, and I'm from Mullen, and I remember the one thing we found the most of was garter snakes, and I was out of there.
No more.
Stepping over the ditch, and there they were.
Yep.
Stepping back over the ditch, there I went. So,
Wait
yeah.
till the rattlers like this, begin to like the altitude.
Oh, no, I grew up with rattlers. I think the garters scare me more.
I have a little girl in my neighborhood comes out of the bush with like
Garter
garter snakes just all over her
Oh,
arms. Like,
no.
"Hey, what is that?" Yeah.
Medusa. It's coming up out of her. Okay, any other questions, Romney? Great job. This was a
Yeah.
great idea to
Absolutely.
simplify it instead of, putting everything into the code so people still have access and they
Yeah.
just get the basic code information that's appropriate. The legal counsel was good with that?
Yes.
Good. Okay. We're all into weeds around here.
Love the weeds.
Any other comments or questions? This is a first reading set for public hearing on October the 12th.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance of the board repealing and reenacting section 6.32 Title 6 Weed Management Plan of the Picken County Code.
Second?
I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 10th if we don't see you before then.
Sounds good. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
12th. Come on
I mean,
the
on the
12th.
12th. Don't come on the 10th because you'll have to wait a couple of days. But you'll miss the traffic that way. All right, next we have item number 7 on our agenda is a Board of Commissioners approving and accepting the deed of conservation easement for the 2 Mile Ranch at Woody Creek, FKA Circle R Ranch. Paul is here, and Glenn, I believe, are you here for the applicant?
Yes.
Do you want to come up and have a seat just in case?
Jocelyn's gonna join on the internet, I hope.
I'm just pulling up a map. My name is Paul Holsinger. I work for Picken County Open Space and Trails as the Agriculture and Conservation Easement Manager. And if I could go back to your previous item, I know we also have a Picken County Extension agent who would be happy to help anybody out with any issues with weeds as well.
Weeds, yeah.
It's Drew Walters in our office, and he works, 1 day a week as extension, but also works as an agriculture specialist for Open Space and Trails, so he can go out for whatever reason you want. Let's see.
Sounds like a good job.
Yeah, so now
he's got
we can get him out there doing Greg's mushrooms, and now we can have him out there doing Romany's weeds, and
Yeah, he's got a great job.
okay, we have never seen this parcel before. We have no history, right, Glenn?
It's been a long time. We're one more hearing.
Because today is a first reading set for public hearing on October the 12th, not 10/10, but 10/12.
Here, while I bring up this, I put in the wrong map on my jump drive here. But, well, this is a conservation easement that's associated with a land use application. It's for 4 separate parcels, but they're owned by one individual. They're Woody Creek Commune 1 LLC, Woody Creek Commune 2 LLC, Woody Creek Commune 3, and 4 LLC. But through this application to approve activity envelope, site plan review, special review for a CDU, and get 10-year vested property rights, the applicant also communicated that they would conserve a large portion of their property, 144 acres, including irrigated lands and lands that border the Forest Service as you go up Woody Creek. And we're at the point now where we're ready to finalize that conservation easement. And I'm just about ready to
Pull up the map.
pull up a map. Trying very hard.
We have mushrooms, weeds, and now commune.
It's Picken County.
It's like, yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is the best I can do right now, just to show the, I'll have a better map for second reading.
I have this map, this is the map that shows all the parcels in the,
Yeah,
it's in our packet. You can always go to the packet website and pull it up from there too.
yeah, so I have that on this, so I'll share that next,
Yeah.
but I just want to show kind of where we're looking, so, oh my gosh. Here we go.
Oh, there you go.
I'm trying. Oh my god. Okay, let's see if I can. Can't get this thing. I'm just gonna.
It won't leave you alone there.
Okay, I'm not gonna touch it. So you'll see this is Woody Creek. If I zoomed out, but I'm scared to do that right now. You would see Star Mesa over here. You would see Cozy Point a little further over. But this is Woody Creek, just as you are about to, you go past that Flying Dog Ranch right here. And that's when the property starts, and it's called 2 Mile Ranch because it's about 2 miles of Woody Creek. And these are the parcels, parcel 1, 2, 3, and 4. And portions of each of those parcels are conserved with this application. All of these upland dry hillsides are being conserved. They're important connection to the Forest Service there, as well as this dark timber area to the south here that runs along Woody Creek on this side and this side, and then also this irrigated meadow on both sides of the creek of this one. That is one of the more impressive conservation values that we're protecting with this. It's about 80 acres with water rights to continue that. One thing that I do want to mention is Pat Scanlon, the owner of these 4 parcels, is very wildlife oriented, and he wanted to add extra language even beyond our template to preserve wildlife habitat and ensure that the property was managed with wildlife in mind. So we made some adjustments to the language that we haven't done in the past to help compel that to happen. And we were happy to do that. And anything Glenn wants to add, or if you have questions, I can bring up the other map as well.
Okay, does anybody have questions for Paul, or can we go to Glenn?
Just wanted to, if I'd be interested in just hearing how the language changed, but you don't have to go into detail. You could point it out to me or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's pretty simple. So we've been adding this continuing agricultural practice language in our conservation easement templates. That really just ties agricultural productivity and leasing of those folks' properties. If they don't want to participate in agriculture, we are reserving the right to find a lessee for them. Of course, they're going to have to agree to it. But within that language, we're also adding this continuing wildlife habitat. It is how we kind of worked it in. And at second reading, I can find the specific language. I just can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's within there. So we're tying it to the open space program a little more than we normally would.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see
Thanks.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, Glenn, did you have anything you wanted to add?
The only thing I would add is that the Down Valley parcel, probably the most significant scenic parcel with the open pasture, is contiguous with the one that George Stranahan put in a conservation easement on the Flying Dog. So it's a pretty significant conservation easement in that area, and that they link the two. And we were out there just last week on a site visit. I was there with Curtis Tesh, and we saw over 100 elk right there on the conservation easement land. They were just probably, starting to move with the change in the season.
Curtis was not hunting at that time. I know he went hunting
No,
today.
we were looking at something on the Flying Dog.
Yeah. So, and is that adjacent property that was Stranahan's, is that pasture or just open?
It's pasture.
So I thought- Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board? So, first reading, chapter 2nd on the 12th of October.
Ready for a motion, or we
Yeah,
have
and
more?
Francie's got her hand up
Oh,
first.
she does, okay.
Francie?
sorry about that. I used to hunt there with my sons, right above this property, and it is incredibly spectacular. I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with it, but I would like a little more explanation of what it is that they are wanting to keep in exchange for the conservation. I saw there were some vested rights for development of how much and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know off the top.
Because that's already part of our previous approval.
Yeah, they were all based on 2001 approvals, and the one thing that I know changed was one building envelope moved from the south side of the creek over to a more appropriate location. We conserved that area. Here, I can bring up this map. It was kind of right around where this cursor is right now. As far as the total allowable
See, you can't separate and subdivide these activity envelopes. They're all part of the ownership entities in the existing configuration. And there are only 2 that are now vacant. Most of the places are developed. There are 10 activity envelopes, and the one that Paul's referencing, which is on parcel C where that cursor is right there, was moved to the far up valley end. So because of the inaccessibility of that envelope to vehicles, and it makes more sense for that to be on the up valley end where there's already a driveway. But I think the key consideration is that these separately developable envelopes can't be sold independently. It's all part of the existing ownership in the existing form that it's in. And there was also a limitation placed on there regarding short-term rentals. The minimum rental is a month for any of these individual houses, but they all stay with the original ownership.
And are they occupied?
Some are occupied and some are not.
Okay, thanks, Glenn.
There's a big significant barn that they brought in, the recycled barn wood from Pennsylvania or someplace, and yeah,
That's
it's pretty
correct.
exceptional. Steve, please.
So I think a key point here is that the development areas were left out of the conservation easement. And these areas that are in the conservation easement are those that didn't have activity envelopes on them or already existing buildings. So they just followed a different model. I mean, some conservation easements encompass the whole property, and then there are call-outs for what is allowed to be built in that area. And this one, they just left those parts out of the conservation easement. It simplifies the conservation easement tremendously because it doesn't have to describe whatever development or activities are allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, and it felt more appropriate for this one since those building envelopes had been established for
A long time ago.
decades. So we were comfortable getting as much as we could of this irrigated field and getting those valuable pieces on either side of the road and the creek. And the Open Space Board was unanimous in approval of accepting this.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I'm appreciative of is the first conservation was just that hillside, and we were like, well, you can't build on that anyway. So they brought in, and the board was concerned about those heavy growth areas, those forested areas, and access for wildlife to the river, to the creek. And so I think this incorporates what the board was asking to make this really an exceptional conservation easement.
Mhm.
And I'm appreciative of that. I've seen this property since 2000, or 1999 actually. So does the board have other questions, or so we would like language to come back to the specifics of the expanded wildlife?
Yep.
Language?
I'll for second reading, I'll bring back. I also made a note that I'll make a conservation landscape map so you can see the context of this in relation to Flying Dog as well as the Craig conservation easement above it.
Love it.
It's going to be a really nice addition, and I'll also come back with the specifics on that wildlife language that we added.
Great.
Great, thanks.
Board need anything else on second reading?
I was just gonna make the motion.
I would entertain a motion.
That we approve and accept the deed of conservation easement for the 2 Mile Ranch at Woody Creek, FKA Circle R Ranch. Thank you to the Scanlons,
Yes.
I'll second the
Second it.
motion.
and Paul and Glenn for your work on this.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Glenn, nice to see you. We haven't seen you since the last conservation easement.
We'll probably both
good.
be back.
All right.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Yeah. All right. Next we have, and do we have Connie? She's got to be here. There she is. So the next item is a public hearing, second reading. This is a resolution for the Board of County Commissioners approving third quarter budget supplemental request. And so the public knows, the board prior to first reading had an extensive work session, went through with some staff members as to these requests. It was all a public meeting, and then on first reading, we went through them again briefly, and so Connie's gonna remind us, there's no changes, I don't believe.
No, there are no changes, and I think I've got the list of supplementals pulled up here for you. The supplementals before you today in the resolution include 2 from the airport fund. There is self-contained breathing apparatus equipment for the airport firefighters. This is a replacement purchase that was scheduled for 2023, but is being moved up to this fall as it allows the airport to save over $40,000 by the early purchase. There's also an increase in scope and cost for the airport layout plan. Then in the Open Space and Trails Fund, proposed improvements for the North Star parking area. In the general fund, the sheriff's office is presenting a grant match along with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife in order to minimize human and bear conflicts. And then the assessor's office has requested an additional appraiser as they are working through succession planning with retirement of an employee next year, and then also the busy reappraisal year coming up. In the Healthy Community Fund and Human Services Fund, they're requesting the grant analyst position be increased from 4 days a week to 5 days a week. And then in the General Fund and Fleet Fund, there's the infrastructure reorganization, a department restructure. This is creating a new engineering and construction director position in the general fund, and then repurposing a fleet fund position, moving it into the general fund in public works for a public works deputy director. These requests will increase the county's budget in 2022 by $2,364,750. That's offset by an increase in budgeted revenues of $1,430,511. And the net effect on the budget is $934,239. So those are all of the requests. Does the board have any questions?
Am I seeing any questions from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I'm gonna open this item for the public to comment. If there's any members of the public in the room who is to comment. Seeing no members in the room, and if there's any members of the public online. We have one name here, but if Travis, you came up as an attendee, I'm just gonna give you the opportunity to comment on this item. If you wish to, you can hit *9 to raise your hand. If not, we will continue because I have a feeling you're here for another item. Okay. I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'm going to close the public hearing on this item. And I would love to entertain a motion or answer questions or comments.
So I'll make a motion, then I'll make comments later. So I'll make a motion to approve on second reading the resolution of the board approving third quarter budget supplemental requests.
I can second that.
And see if you had a comment.
Well, I think just to explained to the public that the process, we set up the budget for each year in each fall. So right now, the budget process is starting to be formulated, which will be for next year's budget. But then during the course of the year, these different things come along that weren't anticipated, and that's why the budget supplemental requests are out there. So oftentimes it's very important things that, like opportunities that we can save money in some cases by taking an action now. For instance, with the breathing apparatus, we're spending money now instead of next year, but we're saving a lot of money in the process because we're getting a better rate at this time. So there are many reasons why these supplemental requests come along, and just so the public understands that we're just adjusting the budget which we approved last fall.
We also like it when we get those huge grants and we get to adjust the budget related to those. And I also want to comment, Connie, because many years ago they would trickle in throughout the year, and now it's more organized, so the board sees them on a quarterly basis. Gives us time to evaluate things all at one time rather than what did we do last week or last month. We see them all kind of in a lump, and we really do appreciate that, Connie. So any other comments from Kelly, please?
Sure, I'll comment. So when, I'm surprised Ellen Anderson isn't here regarding the airport item on the supplemental, because we had received some feedback from her at the Woody Creek Caucus on these items, and so I would like to just address that now. And, with regards to this budget supplemental for the airport, it is to receive $1.4 million in grant funding to carry forward the airport layout plan investigation, to update studies that were last relied on during the airport visioning process, which I think is really important to do. These include passenger numbers, fleet mix study, environmental reevaluations, scope that might be requested by the Airport Advisory Board, and so making sure that this budget is sufficient to do all that, because we know that conditions have quite possibly changed since COVID and since what we've experienced at the airport during the pandemic. And so I think it's important that we do fund the reevaluations of some of these items in order to properly look at the airport layout plan process. And so I just wanted to address those comments that we didn't hear here, but that Craig and I did hear in a different forum on this item.
Great, thank you. Thanks for letting us in on that. Okay, so I already opened and closed the public hearing on this. I'm going to bring it to the board. I did open and close the public hearing, right? Bring it back to the board for any other further comments. Okay, Steve, are you ready?
No, yeah,
You can call the question? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda is again a second reading public hearing. It's an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners authorizing acceptance of the Sardi mining claims donation. Paul, are you hearing this one for us?
Here again. Yep. Dale had a doctor's appointment. I said, don't worry about it. I got it. And I'm going to bring up two maps here. I'm not going to mess around with picking outside just because of my previous experience here. But I'll start with the Bulldog Creek parcel. So these are two parcels that the Sardi family owned, and they contacted Open Space and Trails and just wished to donate them to the program. They had already stripped off 2 TDRs from the Bulldog Creek parcel, as well as 1 TDR from the Express Creek parcel, so they were undevelopable already. They really thought they would just be better handled by Open Space and Trails, and we were happy to move through this process with them. And here
And I think what's a bonus for these is that it's a possibility because of their location, they could be used for, if need be in the future, for land exchange.
Exactly. Yeah. They can be used for all sorts of, they can be used for land exchange. They can be used for, shoring up these valleys and ensuring that they don't get any future claims of minerals on them, since they'll be owned. But this is the Bulldog Creek parcel. It's about 40 acres. Me and Dale walked up there. It's a beautiful, beautiful walk. There's no trail indicated, but there is a 2-track road. It's pretty quiet.
It's on the south flank of Sopris.
Yes, this is Sopris is right over here. This is Faloha Meadows. This is Elephant Butte, and this is the Swiss Village development and Avalanche Hot Springs there. So this is this one, and then the Express Creek parcel is this one. Ashcroft sits up here, and this is 10 acres. Again, one TDR was taken off this, so no development can occur on it. And yeah, this is beneficial to open space for any future land exchanges that we have with the Forest Service. And I did confirm with Dale that there's no donation value being sought for any tax credits or anything. It's just a pure, we're done with these properties and you can manage them. We're going to be managing them along with our, in accordance with our backcountry parcel policy, which is just to manage the property with the surrounding land use regulations. So if the Forest Service has, a trail or allow people to walk through, we're going to just follow their rules.
Good. Questions, concerns from the board? Steve?
So Paul, if these 2 parcels or one or either of them were conveyed to the Forest Service in an exchange, would there be any long-term protection to prevent someone else in the future from going in and filing a mining claim on the exact parcel of land?
It's a good question. I don't know. But yeah, as we know right now, there's a moratorium on new mining claims in that area. But I don't know if that would be something that would happen.
You're talking because of ownership of the mineral rights?
Well, yeah, if it, so let's just do a hypothetical. We're talking these would be potential lands to exchange for other Forest Service lands.
Mm-hmm.
So then they would be part of the Forest Service property and would be subject to mining laws, which would allow people to file a mining claim on certain lands that are out there. Somebody could say, this used to be a mining claim and maybe there are still minerals in there and I want to file a mining claim on the exact same piece of land that we sold a TDR from and sterilized it from having a house built on it.
Yeah, I think once a mining claim is extinguished, it's extinguished. That would mean in perpetuity you could keep flipping, extinguish a mining claim, give a TDR, extinguish a mining claim, give a TDR. I think once it's done, it's done. But that's a good question because we've done this on lots of other mining claim parcels and that question has never come up because I think the understanding is once it's extinguished, it's extinguished. And even if it switches to the forest, it doesn't matter. But that's something maybe we can just ask Dale to send us back a little memo or something, letting us know if that's an issue at hand or if it's been an issue in the past.
Yeah. Good question.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope that it is extinguished forever and could never have that happen to it. But I'd like to look into that and just verify that. If that were the case, then I would say don't trade it to the Forest Service, just have open space and trails, keep the parcel and protect it forever that way.
But then we might have to go back to a lot of our other claims that we've swapped with the Forest Service and make sure that those are clean. Because when we did the Ryan Land Exchange, we gave them, the forest, some claims that were in holdings. And I think once that we had sterilized, and I think once those were done, they were done. But that was part of Ryan which was an act of Congress, so I don't know if this is different because it's just an act of us.
Yeah, well, as long as we own it, nobody can claim anything on it.
Yeah.
So
Another,
until that comes up,
I thought of one other variation on that, and that is we've extinguished the building right on it.
Oh, you're right.
Then if that land was conveyed to the Forest Service, does that extinguishment of the building right go with the property? Maybe the Forest Service wouldn't recognize that. I really don't know. I'd be curious to know the answer to that.
Yeah, I would,
Doubtful that we could mandate that to the Forest Service under their ownership and unless there were specific conditions upon which they took that land.
so we could say we're conveying this parcel to you and these will be the uses.
I think that we could request that. I am not confident that the Forest Service would accept those conditions.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting, because with Ryan, we did give them some claims, and that never came up, and that would open up a huge can of worms with all the protections we've done in the backcountry. So that might be more than just a memo from Dale, it might be a conversation we need to have, so if you can follow up on that for us.
yeah. It's a good thing to know is as long as if we take these,
Right now we're gonna own
we will
them.
protect them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that will be something in the future if we decided to use them for a land
And
exchange.
I remember, and it was up by Ruby, that there were some
Right.
parcels that we had a discussion similar to that. We couldn't dictate to the Forest Service what they were gonna do with the land was kind of the long and short of it, as I remember.
But I think the Forest Service might have had some kind of agreement that came from their side, not our side.
That's possible.
Yeah. So let's follow up and see if that needs to come back for a future discussion for the BOCC. So in the meantime, we have, this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this item on our agenda? And let's see, we have called in. Nobody? There is no one in the room. We'll give it a few minutes if anybody wants to call in and comment on the donation of the Sardi mining claims to the county. We do want to thank the Sardi family for thinking of us and for putting them into our hands for our management in the future, as it makes a great deal of sense for us. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Kelly?
I'll just note, I was looking up on the assessor's site, the tax valuation of this. So this comes at a cost of $580 to the county.
Because we're losing
Per
that
year.
income.
Yeah, per year, for assessed value per year. So it's not totally free, but still a good deal.
I think we can handle
Well
that.
said. Thank you, Kelly.
We need a supplemental budget.
Still no
for that.
such thing as a free lunch. Right.
All right, so, Steve.
Well, I was just thinking about the legacy of the Sardi family in our community, and this just adds to the legacy.
A former commissioner among them.
Yeah, so we have Sardi Field, our airport. We have the Sardi House, a landmark historic building in Aspen. And maybe there are other examples. I think he was a
Sardis.
commissioner for a long
Yeah, Tom
time and
was.
had his finger in a lot of important decisions in
Did
the
you know
past.
that the Sardi house used to be the local mortuary?
I know that, yeah.
And Tommy's uncles worked there. And on Halloween, they'd always invite the boys down there and scare the bejesus out of them in the basement of the Sardi house. Family history. Okay, I would love to hear a motion from the board.
I'd make a motion to accept the donation of the Sardi mining claims, and this is second reading. Here we are.
And we've had a public hearing and we've opened and closed it. So
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Hi.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Are you staying with us for the next one too? So
Even though
the
it's
next,
tabled.
the next item is the
Table
Moore
it.
Family
Oh.
Ranch properties.
How did I miss that?
It's like one line on the second page. It's
Yeah,
kind of
LLC, and it's
Yeah.
a master preservation master plan activity envelope review, first reading. This is going to be continued to October the 12th. I think there just more time was needed to finalize some of the language.
Yes, and we've started talking with parcel 3 of that property was co-owned by the 3 siblings. We've started talking to include that into, I keep hitting that, include it into the bigger deal. So we're happy to continue
great.
this, and hopefully
We're
we'll have
wondering
a
about
better
that.
deal coming for you October 12th.
All right.
That's great news.
So it would be my understanding this would be a public hearing, so I am going to open the public hearing in case anybody was joining us today to comment on the Moore Family Ranch Properties item. Seeing none, I'm gonna leave the public hearing open and continue it to October the 12th, but I do need a motion from the board to continue.
I'll move to continue this item till October 12th.
Including the public hearing. I will second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, thank you. So, we are done with today's agenda, except for open discussion.
Well, and the
Item
modified
nine.
item.
Oh, that modified item, I forgot, that's not open discussion anymore, thank you. We do have an emergency
Bob.
modification to an
Thanks, Bob.
existing resolution, but we do not have staff or the applicant here, so I'm going to leave that open. I'm gonna bring it to the board for open discussion while we're waiting. I told them about 1:30, so we're a little ahead of schedule. So I am going to present to the board an item that has come. John, is that okay if I go ahead with this? I was approached by a young man named Sheldon Gentry. His grandfather is Colonel
Merit.
Merritt, name just went. Sheldon is working on his Eagle Scout badge, and he has a project he would like to bring forward at Veterans Park, and that is to put a plaque commemorating soldiers that have been part of our valley who have fallen in the line of duty. And I think there's about 15. He's been doing his research. He has talked with some of the veterans who kind of help to manage Veterans Park to see if they're supportive of this, and he's going to be bringing forward a written letter of support. He's looking at fundraising, and then he's gonna start researching how to design a plaque. We'll be working with the veterans to see what they would like, where they would like to put it, how they would like to commemorate this. We were hoping to do so in a timely manner so that we can get Colonel Merritt here, and someone suggested to me today that we have, that we see if Sheldon would like to maybe speak at Memorial or Veterans Day this year and present to the public his plan, which I think would be great. And I just wanted to bring it forward to the board, to let the board know that it's really up to the veterans, and I would like to be able to express that the Board of Commissioners is supportive of this effort as it moves forward. We'll be bringing you back the details, and any fundraising ideas would be greatly appreciated. Yeah?
So I would be supportive of having this go forward and putting a plaque somewhere. And like I was telling Patty earlier, I think it's, we need to have the veterans group give us guidance on where, if they approve of this, and where a plaque should be put, and help in the design of it.
Right.
Because they helped us with the design of the
Yeah,
whole Veterans Park.
technically, it'd be totally up to them. We would just be assisting.
Yeah.
So
And
is
I
the board
think
good?
having it done by Veterans Day, it maybe could be.
I don't know if we can get it done by then, to get the plaque ordered. There's usually a
Possibly,
backlog.
might possibly be able to do
There's
that.
usually a backlog. in
Or
getting
maybe
the
by
plaques.
Memorial Day next spring.
Yeah, but I would like to, or maybe we could do a special ceremony at some point
Mhm.
during the year. Okay, so I will keep the board in the loop on that, okay? And I see, do we have everyone here that we need? Is somebody here from the city? Okay, so I'm gonna bring this back. We're calling this an emergency modification to an existing resolution, since the board did pass a resolution allowing, I believe it was 40, you wanna help me?
Yep. Earlier this summer, the board passed resolution 50-22 to allow 20 nighttime operations at the Elam gravel pit. And this is a request from the applicant to modify that further.
And we're modifying it based on?
We are modifying it based on, I've put together stuff in the last 20 minutes.
Well done.
Yeah, so it looks like pursuant to our home rule charter, we can act by formal resolution. The board has authority to approve emergency resolutions, which will become effective immediately upon adoption. By resolution number 88-47, the BOCC granted a special review use permit to Elam Construction for the sand and gravel pit. And by resolution number 50-22, the BOCC previously adopted a minor amendment to condition 16 of that BOCC resolution number 52-2009 to read, for the 2022 mining season only, the Elam gravel pit may be allowed a maximum of 20 nighttime operations at the asphalt hot mix and concrete batch plants. The applicant requests a minor amendment to a development permit to further amend that condition 16A in the BOCC resolution number 52-2009 as previously modified by the resolution earlier this summer, 50-2022, to allow for an increase in the allowed nighttime operations from that 20 to that's currently allowed to what I expect to be 22, but I think the applicant can clarify that for you. And just one more citation for you guys. The BOCC would make such proposed amendment pursuant to section 2-20-150B of our code.
Okay. Kelly?
Question. So this would, so 50-2022 goes away, and this
I think
modifies the previous one.
I think we're
and
actually
replaces it.
modifying the one earlier this summer
Yeah,
because
okay.
the one earlier this summer had two modifications. One was to allow 20 as opposed to 10 nights, and the other modification was to allow 60 as opposed to 40 truck loads.
Okay,
So we're modifying one of the conditions in the last resolution.
And
Thank you.
this being an emergency resolution, it takes effect if the board passes it today, and it comes back to us for a confirmatory reading and a public hearing
Yep.
on October the 12th. So we need to make sure that that's scheduled on our October the 12th
Yeah.
agenda. So if the applicants, who would everybody come up? I think we've got 3 mics here that should be, make sure the little red light is on. So just a brief explanation of the circumstances would be terrific. Whoever wants to speak.
Take this if you want. Yeah. Push this.
It should be, the red light should be on.
It's not on.
Yeah, just, there we go.
And just
Okay.
give your name for the public record, sir.
Hey, I am Shay Stutzman with Stutzman Gerbaugh Earth Moving. Thank you guys so much for your time. So we had been in contact with Elam Construction about doing some nighttime operation to facilitate a Main Street Highway 82 closure and using the gravel pit as our place for staging and receiving materials. From what we were told is that the 60 load should have been adequate, but it sounds like United is actually doing better than anticipated, so they're utilizing all of those 60 loads. So what we would request is an additional 20 loads for this evening and an additional 15 loads for tomorrow night. And that will allow us to complete our already scheduled Highway 82 Main Street closure tonight and then paving operations tomorrow night.
So to me, this is an effort to try and get the construction done along Highway 82 from the ABC to town and through town. And we know that people are ready
Nobody
to
wants
have that
that.
done. No, so you notice I took a big sigh in between saying that. So does the board have any other questions for the city or for Shay or Laura?
I have a question, just so I understood, because this all happening a little quickly. Is the applicant requesting an additional 20 loads beyond the 60 tonight and an additional 15 loads beyond the 60 tomorrow night for a modification on the total number of loads, and also requesting 2 additional beyond the 20 that are currently allowed in terms of nighttime operations? It sounds like there's 2 modification requests happening, so I want to make sure we capture everything.
So you're talking the number of loads and the number of nights?
Correct.
So my understanding is that United Companies is going to utilize all 60 loads tonight and tomorrow night. So we would be requesting an additional 20 loads tonight and then an additional 15 loads tomorrow night, but that will complete all operations.
Okay, so it sounds to me like there's not a request for additional nights.
Correct.
There's a request for additional loads. So you would actually be modifying condition 16B, not condition 16A, to allow, instead of 60 loads, 80 loads, up to 80 loads for
95.
for the 2 remaining nights.
60 plus 20 plus 15?
But it sounds like 2 different, it's 60
Seven
loads per
different
night.
Got it, per night. Thank you.
So, in other words, the nighttime impacts would be the same nights, it's just it'd be additional loads,
Correct.
and we'll get her done.
Correct.
Are hours of operation extended to, in order to run those, or just additional vehicles on the road?
Just additional vehicles.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What's the significant impact for the roads with that many? Is there a highway tonnage impact or on the surfaces, or I'm just thinking, you know, it seems
Yeah.
fine. I just want to understand it.
Yeah, I would argue that there is significantly more traffic than that during daytime operations, so I think this would be a reduction of impact on the roads.
And I had asked that question of Brian Pettit when we initially talked about this, and he said there wasn't a good way to sort of incrementally understand the
Right.
before and after impacts.
Well, we know it
I
has
don't
to
know
be
that's a
done.
great answer, but, yeah.
Yeah, and I know Steve Steve, did you have a comment?
Well,
Francie has one
it's
too.
like there's it's 2 different projects happening, one in the city, one on the state highway.
Yes, sir.
And so therefore, you probably have 2 sets of paving equipment in operation
Correct.
to do that. That's already, all that equipment is already in place.
Everything's already in place.
So it's
yeah.
not like you're using one set of equipment doing both projects?
No, sir.
And you're-
Okay.
are
I
you
was just
running-
curious about that.
This is the city project, and then United is doing the highway.
Correct.
Correct, just want to make sure I got that.
It's a city CDOT
Yeah.
project at the intersection at Carl's Pharmacy.
Okay.
So it's just, they were trying to coordinate it, so it was kind of all happening, and it was moving forward for tonight, and then they realized they didn't have enough
Correct.
material.
Yeah, it sounds like United is progressing faster than they thought, so they're utilizing all the 60 loads when we did this initial conversation that they didn't think that they would be utilizing all 60. So we're kind of caught in just making sure that we are okay
So
potentially.
we like the fact that United is progressing quickly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Francie, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a question. So I'm to understand this is an emergency change in our last resolution, I guess, to include more loads carried tonight. Is that correct?
And tomorrow
And
night.
tomorrow night, correct.
Not
Right.
tomorrow night.
That's
No
correct, but
wonder
it's
the-
still within the
Oh,
same
no
night.
wonder it's an emergency. So then, and then you'll be done after that?
We will be finished. That's correct.
The project at Carl's will be finished, and United is progressing a little quicker than they thought, so hopefully we're not gonna be interfering with the repaving outside of town.
Oh, I know what the other part
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
So the guys are all ready, set up and ready to go tonight?
We are actively working as we speak.
And they know they're gonna continue through the night? Or they think they're going to?
They're home taking naps as we speak.
Yeah.
Unless
Okay.
we say no, then they're free for the evening, right?
Yeah,
But I
and they're
don't
well
think they're gonna
rested
do
for the
that.
evening, so
Yeah.
that could be more trouble than we anticipated. Yes, sir.
Justin
Could you
Foreman,
just-
City of
thank
Aspen
you.
Utilities Department. Just want to say thank you all to this group for considering this. You know, we've had this in place for a month now, and it got sprung on us
Last night.
Yeah,
Yesterday?
less than 24 hours. So, you know, we wouldn't, the importance of this and trying to minimize the disruption, but understanding the spot we're putting you all in, we really appreciate at least the consideration.
Well, I appreciate how diligently you're tracking all of this, to come with such a detailed request. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining Shay. We were gonna throw Shay to the wolves here, but you guys came along to help protect them.
So I come to town so seldom these days that I wasn't even aware the paving project was going on until I'm riding the Raptor bus into town today.
Lucky you.
And you probably, I mean, I'm sure you could have run 100 trucks tonight and I would not know because I live down valley.
Somebody would let you know. Well, I rode the bus from the Intercept lot last night, and I was glad I wasn't driving my car in during the repaving. It was about 7:30ish by the time the bus came, and it was interesting to be able to just ride the bus through it and see the lights and all the activity and not be worrying about my little car going up one grade and down, and then, so, yeah, it's coming along, and the community is bearing with it as best they can on the whole project. So, we tried to explain to the constituency that we're gonna bear the brunt of this now, get it done. So next year, minor repairs over the next couple of years, but no big repairs such as are going on this year. So and that made sense both financially and in interruptions for people's lives, so.
And can you remind what utilities are being improved with this aspect of it?
Yeah, the main portion of this work is within the next 5 years, all of the downtown electrical circuit, if you're on City of Aspen Electric, is getting redone. So very proud of that commitment to replace that infrastructure. It's 30 plus, 40 years old, and it's time to get that replaced. So Shay and his group, they've been working around the red brick and yellow brick, and we're now ready to cross Highway 82, and we'll start into the downtown core after that. So many more years left on that project, but for this year, we're getting close to the final leg.
I think my family had something to do with that original infrastructure getting put in, the electric.
Yeah.
It was probably the Caparellas, I think, but.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, so.
Well, and I'll just comment, the flaggers have been great. My youngest child goes to the yellow brick, so I'm constantly crossing Main Street and walking around that neighborhood, and it has felt very safe, and we've been accommodated, so thank you.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
So this project is, this one is 2 blocks up.
Yep.
So,
Right
you guys have
across.
a lot going on.
Yeah.
Steve, please.
So I have a question that just popped into my head about replacing electrical equipment. I presume you're replacing a lot of copper wire. And what happens with the copper wire you're taking out? How does that, I presume it's getting recycled, but I'm curious. I want to make sure it
Quality.
is being recycled.
Yeah, it's
The infrastructure that's in place is currently a direct burial line. So it would be we can't disrupt what's currently in place without people losing significant amount of power. So the direct burial line is just going to remain in place. Once the new conduit is put in and the new wire is installed, the old direct bury cables will just remain in place.
So they're buried, they're not in a conduit, they can't be pulled
For
out.
sure, and that's the unfortunate situation.
Unless you do a mining operation under the
Unless
city
we
streets
do this
in
all
the
over again,
future.
which we're not going to
Let's
do.
not do it
Okay,
again.
well, I was curious about, what happens to the old wire.
And that was one of the issues, that they weren't putting conduit. I know we have some
Correct.
issues at Smuggler Trailer Court.
Yep.
That they weren't laid in conduit.
For sure. So now now conduit's in, you can remove it, replace it, upgrade it.
Slide it in.
Without tearing the streets up.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have an emergency modification. Laura, thank you. We need to thank the county assistant attorney over here, who who jumped on this morning along with Brian Pettit from Public Works.
Yes.
Thank you all
So
very
we
much.
were able to pull
Very, very
this
much.
off.
We really appreciate it.
And we were able to pull it off and do it correctly. So it wasn't just a board decision, it was an actual modification to an existing reso.
Thank you.
Emergency. So anyway, we're good at emergencies. So anyway, I do have an emergency resolution in front of me, and we'll schedule for confirmatory reading and public hearing on the 12th of October. So do I have a motion from the board?
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Go to work, gentlemen, and be
Thank you.
safe.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very
Have a great
much.
rest of your
Yeah.
day.
Take care of that new baby.
Yes, ma'am. He's loving the toys.
He loves his new toys.
Yes.
There's a new baby boy.
Awesome.
Okay, so, Mr. Peacock, who has been sitting there so patiently with us today, do you have anything for open discussion?
Nothing today, Patty.
Whoa. Kelly?
Yeah, I just want to check in. I'm curious if there's any feedback, since we didn't have any time for discussion about the meeting with APSHA yesterday. I'd love to be able to sort of report back to them if it was well received, because if they're trying to do more of these type of things in the community, I think it'll be worth their time to know what was beneficial or what wasn't beneficial, or if there's outstanding questions that people still have. I'd be happy to chase down too.
Well, I'll speak. I think the evolving numbers with the home check, the evolving numbers, the numbers guy, were very helpful, and I see them as first blush, and they're only gonna get better as we move forward, and we'll get a better grasp on needs and applicants and where those needs are, what kind of accommodations people need, what kind of living situations. So I think it was great, and they were very efficient in their presentation, and I wanna thank you, Kelly, for bringing it forward. Board, does the board have any comments? Steve, please.
Well, tagging on to yours, the numbers to me were interesting to digest what they mean in terms of what do we need to build more of, what do we have too much of, those sorts of things. I would have to study that a lot more to understand it. But I presume that the APSHA board and the APSHA staff have a good handle on how to best use the data that you're collecting to come up with the best, best steps to take going forward.
Yeah, I would say, just in reaction to that, I think some of, since APSHA is not a developer, we don't spend a ton of time interpreting how that translates into need. I think it's there to inform housing developers on those questions, like us and the city, but we do use it to figure out, like, what are the problems in the system, or what are opportunities to leverage better use, or, make the system more fair.
So,
yeah.
If APSHA could come up with recommended steps that we could take, to what kind of projects are needed, and then for the approval agency or the city's the approval agency, just so we would know, or try to get development proposals brought forward that meet our needs. I think that would be an important use of that data.
And I think APSHA could do, like, one of my takeaways was maybe they could do more about tracking what people are looking for, because like they said, they're not tracking on the rental side necessarily what people might be looking for, right? They're only tracking like the application process. So there is a good, I think, opportunity there.
That is a great opportunity, actually, because then that helps us planning.
Yeah.
So, everybody says all across the state, we need more affordable housing. Well, there's lots of niches of affordable housing, and what exactly niches do we need more of?
Right.
I appreciated that, noticed that also. It's like they're tracking the sales, but not the actual demand. The sales reflected what was available to be up for bid. So useful, but it would be nice to see a more expansive understanding of demand and quite frankly, demand from the community. Beyond the people who are just looking for a place to move in, perhaps from business owners, people looking for employees. It would be nice to see how that's reflected as well.
And I think those are opportunities for expansion in the system.
And honestly, more frequent reports would be great. I can't remember the last time we heard from APSHA like that, and that was really useful.
Yeah, it was great.
I appreciated it. Always more questions than, more questions are created after a presentation like that.
That's what's good about it.
But that's the good thing, that they're doing it.
Any other comments or questions from the board for open discussion? No, I want to thank the board again for yesterday, being in Redstone. Thought it was a great meeting. I think we gained a lot, and we'll see about bringing it back for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend we think about scheduling that once a year,
With APSHA?
No,
with Redstone?
with Redstone. Either on specific topics or, I don't know what that can look like.
we used to
I feel
meet
like
down
we could
there.
like go in September when it's still light in the evening and people can drive.
We used to go down there on a regular basis years ago, but we didn't have to do everything the way we do it with electronics now. We could just go down there and have a work session and take minutes. So we need to figure that one out so that we're still, abiding by the agreements we've given to the public for access to our meetings. But, something we should talk about.
Also, we should know about this, whatever the timeline is for a response to what we heard there. They're not going to wait a year for us to come back to them, of course. While we're talking about short-term rentals, I assume it'll be a timely response.
Well, I did tell them that we would be bringing it back to the board for discussion, and we just need to get us some agenda time. We've got like so much free time coming up, right, John, in our work sessions, like 3 hours of budget, and then 4 hours of budget. So we'll find some time where we can find out where the board wants to go and any more data we might want to be focusing on as far as the good questions and comments I think that came up yesterday.
And we're receiving written comment as well.
We're starting to get some in, and I really appreciate that going out, and we'll stay in touch with Gentry at DECO, because she was really helpful in getting that information out before the meeting. She called Charlotte, and Charlotte and I talked, and Charlotte got back to her. So, and I also want to thank Charlotte and Andrew and Laura and John for being there with us.
And Jeanette.
And Jeanette.
And Alex.
And Alex, yeah, and half of the county staff that knew we were on the road, and everybody got off and let us get out of town quickly. So we appreciate that. Steve?
So, a lot of times when we receive letters, like I got the one from Stacy today, which I present. I
She
don't
sent
know
it
if
to
it was
each of
to
us
all of
indi-
us.
She sent it to each of us individually.
We really need to be sure that if someone just sent a letter to one of us, we need to make sure that it
Everybody should send
Gets to
them on
everybody.
to Charlotte, and then Charlotte will vet them and say, well, it's the same letter everybody got, but it'll go into the public record that way.
Yeah.
To Charlotte.
Or actually Julia.
You want to send her to Julia?
yeah.
Okay, don't send them to Charlotte. Charlotte's probably already going, no, not to me. Send them to Julia. She'll vet them so that one goes into the public record, and she'll make sure that if it only came to one of us, that the other 4 get it individually, so we're not holding a public meeting in private.
Okay.
All right, John, anything else? Okay. Laura, anything from your side? Thank you, Laura, for working on that. That was great, perfect. And thanks for being there last night. You did a great job helping with reading the language. That was really beneficial. Okay, so board. Greg, you
Motion to
got a
adjourn.
lot of
Motion to
time.
adjourn, right,
Yeah, I got a
second.
motion to
I'll
adjourn
second.
and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 We got it done sooner than I thought. Greg, you got
Thank
plenty
you.
of time.
I could
You can,
John, are you upstairs?
walk over and back.